Hi, I'm Tim. This is Watches Today. We got Ethan on the switcher. Don't overpay for your watch. An important issue. We're naming brands, models, and prices and going in depth. Plus, all your viewer wrist shots today on Watches Today. While we warm up, check me out on Instagram, where I'm live 24 hours a day, or at least on demand. Almost 4,000 one-minute reviews. You can watch them until you're ready to pass out. It is the most colorful page on wristwatch YouTube. Or Instagram, I should say. This is YouTube, and we've got a lot to say, starting with a few of yours on mine. Wrist shots number 1. We got Spencer K. astonishes with his Lange und Söhne Richard Lange Tourbillon pour le Mérite from the 1916 company through Matt Parker. Thank you for trusting our company. Dr. B thinks differently with his Parmigiani from 1916 from Armand Johnston, and that's on board his now famous Bentley Bentayga. Jim M. prepares for summer 2026 in traditional fashion with his Breguet tradition. Looking good. Mohammed drives with the ultimate driver's watch and the winner's gift at the 24 Hours of Daytona, the Rolex Daytona two-tone. Basil H. wears his Tritone Omega Seamaster in his Mercedes-Benz GLS 63 AMG. Big machines and small right there. We got Wesley G in his Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean Summer Blue, visiting the Eiffel Tower in France against a blue sky. Isaac S. in his Rolex Submariner Roll in his Tesla in Melbourne, Australia. And Assad of California wears Porsche and drives Porsche with his 1975 911 and his Porsche-designed Chronograph 1. Send your wrist shots to Watches Today at the1916company.com to see your machine on my screen. All right, guys, don't overpay for your watch. Can we be frank for a moment? No, we can't, because Frank was a genius and I'm just a YouTuber. Also, we really can't play that song for a whole bunch of reasons that have nothing to do with copyrights. But Frank was also direct, blunt, and forthright about the facts of life. And for a watch collector, that means we need to talk about money. This is an expensive hobby, and even the Joker, who insanely burned money, would call us insane for burning as much money as we do on watches. And that would be a few of mine in the background. Not the cash, but the watches. Here's the thing, you should spend what you can when you can because life is short. However, there's definitely a reason to save money even if you live like there's no tomorrow. And because I don't believe in financing watch purchases ever, cash is king when expanding your collection. It helps to have more. Through a combination of negotiation, depreciation, and possibly combinations, you should be able to get a huge amount of money off your next watch if you play your cards right, especially that one. Take my experience buying 2 brand new watches, the only brand new watches I've ever bought through authorized dealers. My first serious high horology watch was the JLC Master Compressor World Alarm Tides of Time. It had a retail price of $19,200 back in 2010 when I bought mine. It was an unbelievably cool watch that had a digitally set alarm with an on-off function, world time, a titanium case suspended by springs inside a steel outer case, quick release lugs that allowed any 22mm strap to be fitted, and it was just a lot of fun. It was a watch that allowed me to have something great that was at the same time under the radar. No one knew how much it cost. But here's the thing, JLC probably didn't know how much I paid for it either. And nobody wanted that JLC. I first saw it in a case at an authorized dealer on Long Island around Christmas of 2009. I loved it, but I saw the price and I moved on. I wasn't a buyer at list. Fast forward to June of 2010, I go home for my birthday, come back from the military for a week to see my mom, and I see the same watch at the same jeweler, and I make a phone call. I offer $11,000 for the watch. Hey, can't hurt to ask, right? Now, that would have been laughable upon release, and I can guarantee you, had I offered $11,000 the day that arrived, I would have been politely or impolitely laughed out of London jewelers. But a year in the case changed their perspective. The watch is like an unsold, expensive car burning a hole on a dealer's lot. The vendor was ready to deal, and I wound up paying $11,700 for the watch new in box. And what a beautiful box it was. That was really special presentation. The warranty was activated and valid, and I had all of the boxes, the papers, and even the accessory strap that came with it. In the end, I got almost 40% off a brand new watch by paying attention to aging inventory, making aggressive offers, promising a prompt wire of money, which always helps when negotiating price. And remember that. Making a direct and instantaneous complete payment on a wire will always get you the best price. It's usually a few percentage points, not dozens of percentage points, but if you added up all these factors, you got the deal I got. Now let's take a look at my Duomet chronograph in white gold, which I bought in 2014, 4 years after the tides of time. This watch debuted as a limited series of 200 pieces in white gold for 2010, and I knew it would be my ultimate grail, and that is mine on my wrist. I liked but didn't love the original versions in rose, yellow, and platinum, but when I saw the black dial on white gold, it was a done deal. Or I should say, it was a done deal after 4 more years of saving money towards this one undivided target. I called all sorts of gray market dealers like Ashford and Joma Shop to see if I could get this watch for under retail, since that seemed to be the way for most new watches, which all seem to be available for less money gray market, especially in 2013 and 2014. No luck. Either they promised to meet my price but didn't actually have the watch and would have to search for months or who knows how long, or they wanted something like full retail if they did have the watch in their possession. So the gray market wasn't really helping me out on price or access. Now, one of these aftermarket hustlers actually told me that my purchase price through him would rise soon because JLC was about to raise its prices. Now, I expect that kind of hard sell from an authorized dealer, definitely not from the gray market. Yeah, sure. I saw the $52,500 retail and I knew I wasn't going to pay that. As much as I loved the watch, I knew people were getting them for less. Like the tides of time before it, this Duomet was an expensive niche watch that was selling slowly and only to a certain type of outside the norm buyer who was anything but mass market. I knew even then that the Rolex rules of showing up, begging, and then waiting didn't apply to a watch nerd brand and a super expensive precious metal dress watch complication. There was no wait, no markup, no flipping, and no mainstream media attention for this watch or the brand at the time, so I monitored Chrono 24 knowing that this watch was moving slowly and that even with only 200 pieces, unsold inventory remained on the market 4 years after the watch was launched. Again, the psychology of a watch dealer is like that of a car dealer, and a watch that's expensive and won't sell is tying up money that could be reinvested into hotter inventory that sells faster. At some point, a watch listed by an Italian dealer on Chrono 24 came up for $38,000. Well, the watch was described as new with a warranty, so naturally I had questions. Is this for real? Do they have the watch? Am I going to get snookered? Is this going to be some sort of aftermarket bait and switch? A lot of questions came to mind. They weren't authorized by the factory. After I reached out, they explained that the Duomet would come from an authorized dealer that they use as a partner. Okay. Maybe I buy that. At that price, maybe I'll buy this tail. But after some basic due diligence, I found out that this vendor was legitimate and had a long track record. I wired the $38,000, crossed my finger, and waited. Sure enough, it arrived around a week later from a Northern European authorized dealer that executed and activated the warranty card. Now, anyone can sign up a warranty card. The acid test is what does the factory think if you have to action that warranty. Later, when I realized this watch had a fingerprint on the movement, and that's not mine, that's one we had in inventory at some point, but mine had a fingerprint on the movement and it was pretty egregious. JLC recognized my registered factory warranty, accepted my warranty claim, and handled the entire service gratis with apologies. All of which is to say this truly was a new watch. My warranty was valid and I was the first owner for $38,000. Research, patience, knowing your brand, knowing your dealer, knowing your model, doing the legwork, and then wiring the money all in one big block got me what I wanted at an astonishing discount from new. So I truly did buy a brand new $52,500 watch for $38,000. and passed the acid test of a warranty claim that I confirmed the factory believed to be genuine. And so the dealer was real, the deal was great, and the watch was mine for so much less money. And I think I bought 2 more watches with the cash I saved. And if all of this sounds too good to be true, keep a few facts in mind. First, not all watches at all price points leave dealers eager to move on. It tends to be very expensive models with limited appeal and small markets, precious metal cases, and brands whose aftermarket depreciation travails are well known to the watch community, which say the dealer doesn't have a leg up on you in terms of information about the market. Under those circumstances, watches can be harder for the dealer to sell, and dealers will make more concessions if clients are patient and negotiate with confidence. You're not going to walk into a store and pull off a heist like I did if the target is a Submariner or a steel Aquanaut. Further, this sort of trick, negotiating, 25 to 40% off a watch, tends to work best with fairly high volume brands for some reason that are owned by big luxury groups whose stock is publicly traded, where they often worry more about selling to the dealer than they do about how the dealer sells the watch at retail prices. So just use that as your guide to where you might have some more leverage. It would be extremely hard to walk into Audemars Piguet, Patek Philippe, FP Journe, all privately held, and lop 25% off the price of a watch on demand. That's not going to happen, guys. So disabuse yourself of the notion, but also know when that chance exists, because it will work to your advantage, and it's true more often than not with new watches. So let's take a look at the other side of the equation, which is resale and depreciation of a used watch. Not something that's bought gray market or at a huge discount, but a genuine used watch that is bought by an end user, sold to an aftermarket dealer, and resold to, well, in this case, me. This was my stunning JLC Amvox chronograph, an Aston Martin-inspired, manufacturer caliber, triggerless, or I should say pusherless chronograph with an articulated case. I wore it more than any of my other 9 JLC watches, and it's the watch I wore to my Watch You Want job interview in 2014. It's the one I regret selling the most. Now, as a new watch, this last retailed for around $16,500. But keep in mind that this sum in 2014 was pre-COVID cash, so using the Bureau of Labor Statistics CPI calculator, it's something like $23,491 in today's 2026 funny money. So in June of 2014, I paid $6,750 for that watch pre-owned, which is $9,610 in today's money. And that's monopoly money, by the way. So I got a great deal. And then I paid about $950, which was incredibly reasonable, for a full factory JLC service on this watch. So at the end of the day, I don't know, what was it, like 50 to 53% off retail for an immaculate condition, factory serviced, used Amvox 2 with a service warranty from the factory. That was a great deal. The key was doing my homework, shopping around, buying used, taking some of my savings, investing it in a service, and then winding up with a watch that was unimpeachable for so much less money. We were into the price of like Omegas at that point for a handmade JLC. We're going to share quite a few words about used watches this morning, but first, wrist shots number 2, starting with Kudzu Man and his Omega Seamaster Aquaterra World Timer encountering Star Wars in Tokyo. It's everywhere. Franchier extends his visit on Punta Cana, Dominican, with Roger Dubuis at the pool. Kim C hits the road on 2 wheels with his Tudor Black Bay Bronze. Naraz Menem visits the vaguely disturbing Luna Park in Melbourne with his Breitling Chronomat GMT 44. Eric P of North Carolina cooks for Mother's Day with his Chopard Monaco Historique. And we've got Jens F from Germany, who shows us something fresh with his Breitling Navitimer Ethos Edition, which was made in very limited quantities for the Indian market. Okay, don't overpay for your watch. An elite brand like Vacheron should offer quality and prestige, and indeed it does. But value still depends on factors beyond the watch itself. Supply and demand matter. And there's the simple fact that watches don't age out of the market like non-durable goods. Fashion eventually goes out to the curb. Even most cars are generally recycled. So Watches stick around forever, and they begin to aggregate on the aftermarket, which changes the value of a used example, but also what a new one can sell for out of the dealer's case. Let's consider an iconic watch here. Let's consider an iconic Vacheron, the American 1921 from the Historique collection. In white gold, it's timeless and versatile for a dress watch. The white gold variant is a relatively new one too, as you see it here, launched in 2021, yet there are already opportunities to buy this watch for less. And with 8-year warranties now from Vacheron, that's even more appealing. Or consider the price of the latest rose gold version, which now has blue numerals. Okay, that's great, but if you can accept black numerals instead of blue, you can pay far less for the same watch. Now, it's barely changed since the modern iteration arrived in 2008. So we're talking 20s of thousands now, not 40s of thousands for the same watch. And if you can deal with blue printed numerals versus black and sub black for blue, then you can save a lot of money on your rose gold 40mm American 1921. And that's the kind of value I'm talking about. We're talking over 40% off a product that'll last minimally 300 years if you take care of it. And that's what I mean about the watch is not aging out of the market. Every 1921 ever created should still exist today. There's no reason why it wouldn't. Now let's be honest. We're talking the same money that people will pay once we get into the $20,000 range as aftermarket markups of steel Rolex sports watches. You know, we're talking about steel, mass-produced sports watches being priced used for that kind of money. You're talking about an iconic, handmade, hand-decorated, Geneva Seal, Holy Trinity dress watch whose style has stood the test of time. This is not something made in tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of copies per year. And this is what I mean when I talk about value and not paying too much, knowing the alternative opportunities on the aftermarket. How about complications? Let's do this. Traditionnel perpetual calendar chronograph. One of this brand and the industry's flagship complications. Legendary stuff. But if you don't need it in platinum or a salmon dial right now, expect huge discounts for the same model. And if you do need it in platinum, but you don't need it with a salmon dial, you can still expect huge discounts. And look down in the left-hand corner there, even with the platinum and the salmon dial, you're looking at quite a bit of money off retail for the same watch. We're talking about the same model with different dial colors and case metals, and even in the case of that salmon dial platinum, you got an option at about 29% off retail. So consider this, be realistic about what you're willing to spend, and if you are that guy who only wants a new watch, ask, what am I really willing to pay for the pleasure of being the first to put it on the wrist? I don't think it's worth it. I think this is. Okay, how about normal watches from brands that don't charge $100,000 or more? Well, let's do it. That's not so tough either. Omega Speedmaster Moonwatch Dark Side of the Moon. $14,400 for the outgoing watch, which is still available at dealers new. The model did not change from 2013 to 2024, so they're all basically the same. And because they're ceramic, they don't mark. So why pay more than you must to own the same watch? Take a look at that. Big bucks to be saved on a ceramic watch that needs no refinishing. Maybe you pay for a service to bring it bang up to modern running standards. And then you've got a service warranty on your watch, which is immaculate in ceramic and priced thousands of dollars less than you would pay if you bought it new. Still possible out of a dealer's case, by the way. Or consider Breitling. It's a stronger brand today than 9 years ago, but gravity still applies. When the 40mm manual wind Premier B09 Pistachio came out in 2021, it was the first Breitling model I could recall that was being allocated to dealers in fixed quantities like Rolex does with Daytonas and Patek does with Cubitus. Pricing was and remains fair if you want to buy it new. But markets are efficient mechanisms for pricing goods and services. So on the open market, you now have many options to buy this fantastic watch at even more accessible price points. And that's the magic of the aftermarket, which will efficiently determine what the going rate should be for a watch. This is true up and down the collections for the likes of mainstream luxury brands like Omega, Breitling, IWC, and even Tudor. Yes, Tudor, a strong brand to be sure, Tudor is. Here, with the unique and appealing Black Bay AG925, the Black Bay 58 in sterling silver, we witness a phenomenon I mentioned earlier. Watches never age out of the market. And when this arrived in 2021, everyone was astonished because nobody makes a sterling silver dive watch, especially with taupe accents. Silver watches are hard to find at any price point in any class, so this was truly a unique proposition at the time. Even if you calibrate supply to demand efficiently in any given year. Now, this is where production catches up with you. The cumulative volume of watches eventually begins to soften the aftermarket, and that's a great opportunity for people who want something cool, accessible, and built by a blue-chip Rolex sibling brand. We're not talking about $170,000 Vacherons that become $90,000 anymore. We're talking about a $5,600 Tudor Black Bay that could become a $4,000 and change watch, even if you limit yourself, as here, to US market examples. Bargain a bit and it could be even less. Even if you wind up paying $4,500, you're talking almost 20% off watches that have 5-year warranties, and that's a good deal. Wrist shots number 3, Kerry B and his Oris Aquis hike Lake Louise in the Canadian Rockies of Alberta, Canada. Ruben S of Atlanta captures a casual moment in his socks with the Christopher Ward Belcanto Phoenix. Bob M of Cleveland shares his 1980s vintage Seiko SBDB 5018 Golden Tuna. Will L takes diving to the next level in Majorca with his Longines Legend Diver, and Ben 10 gets close and personal with the stamped lacquer dial of his Geo Vintage 60s Chrono. Don't overpay for your watch. Patek Philippe is known for the strength of its brand, conservative family ownership, insatiable public demand for its sports watches, especially in steel, robust resale value of Nautilus, Aquanaut, and Cubitus model families. But what happens if we consider dress watches? A Calatrava 5227G with automatic movement, hunter case back, and a white gold case, the dial variant currently in production is going to be $47,262. But back up to the previous dial, and that will cost you $20,000 less, up to $20,000 less for just swapping out the previous dial. It's also true the most exquisitely executed rare handcraft watches, like the 516500R. Every surface of this retrograde perpetual calendar's officer's watch is engraved slowly by the hands of Patek Philippe's greatest craftsmen. No two are alike. This is real luxury, the kind that cannot be mass-produced. And yet, against a retail price of $235,006, we find real inventory on the aftermarket as low as $150,000 for white gold and rose gold models. How about a Patek dress watch that's in steel? Maybe it's not about dress watches, maybe it's about material. Surely that will support a stronger aftermarket price floor. The smash hit 5212A weekly calendar is a great test at a retail of $43,136. When this came out, it was unobtainable. That was 2019. 7 years later, the market's inherent deficiencies have settled on global pricing in excess of $13,000 below retail. If you want to stick to USA sellers as a safe baseline, then we're still looking at reductions as great as 22% from retail. The watch has not changed in any way since its release, so these are apples to apples comparisons. This isn't a verdict on quality, only supply versus demand. It's easy to get hung up on 4 or 5 watch brands and perhaps 2 to 3 dozen hype models that are constantly in the news, at auction, or inundating your social media. Guys, let me know in the comments below this video, how have you negotiated or shopped to drive a hard bargain, find value, and get more mileage out of your watch dollars? And viewers chats number 4, Gareth, the UK, is in Portland Bill, England with the Seiko Turtle Paddy Diver. JCS proves the longevity of Swatch watches with his 1993 quartz chronograph, still ticking. Toby the dog visits Darth Muppet and pays respect to Rolex's Explorer. John A. proves that fun comes in an affordable package with his $250 Timex Marlin California dial. Stephen E. reminds me of my homeland with the Franck Muller Long Island. And Darren S. takes us home with his Grand Seiko Tokyo Lion Tentograph at a Japanese garden and koi pond in California. Guys, be well, have fun. Thanks to my tech crew, and time out.